This is Richie, a 20-year-old college dropout who is broke, depressed, and trying to figure out what to do with his life after leaving school. One night while taking his girlfriend to a charity fair in town, Richie sees a boxing booth with a koala mascot standing out in front. A woman is yelling, "If you can last 60 seconds with the beast koala, you win $100. Richie knows the night is not going as planned. He is low on money, embarrassed, and desperate to turn things around somehow. To him, $100 does not come around easily. So against his better judgment, he decides to press his luck. He pays the $20 entry fee, steps into the booth, and gets knocked out with one punch. As Richie lies on the ground, staring up at the sky with a pounding headache, he turns his head and sees his girlfriend recording the whole thing. She laughs and says, "You're about to go viral." She posts the video online. Within hours, it spreads across social media, gaining millions of views. Richie is embarrassed, angry, and humiliated. He gets back up to his feet and starts walking towards the mascot, but security steps in before things get out of hand. Later that night, Richie returns to his small studio apartment. He sits alone, scrolling through his phone, watching strangers laugh at the worst moment of his life. Then he notices a message from a man named Edgar, a retired boxer from town. Edgar tells Richie that he saw the video. He says that even though Richie got knocked out in one punch, he saw something most people missed. He saw Richie get back up. He saw potential. Richie sits there, staring at the message on his screen, not realizing that this one embarrassing moment is about to give his life a whole new purpose. Richie decides to meet Edgar at his gym, which sits above an old corner store he has walked past many times in his life. When Richie steps inside, embarrassment hits him immediately. He can tell by the way other fighters look at him that they know exactly who he is from the viral video. Edgar tells Richie that he saw potential in him, but potential alone will not be enough. He explains that heart can get a fighter through hard moments, but training, discipline, and technique are what keeps a fighter standing in the ring. Richie admits that he cannot afford boxing lessons right now because he only works a part-time job. Edgar tells him not to worry. If Richie is serious, he can work at the corner store while training at the gym. Richie accepts the offer and begins his training. Edgar teaches him footwork, defense, and basic boxing techniques. At first, Richie struggles, but little by little, he starts to improve. After weeks of training, Edgar believes Richie is ready for an exhibition fight. Richie nervously steps into the ring against one of Edgar's more experienced students. The fight lasts 3 rounds, but Richie shocks everyone when he wins by TKO. With a powerful uppercut to the chin, Edgar smiles and tells him, "I told you you were special." In that moment, Richie's nerves began to turn into confidence. After a few months of winning fights at the amateur level, Edgar tells him about a 22-year-old boxer named Marvin from a gym across town. Marvin is building a name for himself just like Richie. Sooner or later, Richie and Marvin will meet in the ring, but what Richie does not realize is that he has already faced Marvin before. He just did not know it. Edgar tells Richie that he believes he is ready for the Diamond Gym Gloves boxing tournament. He explains that Richie will be facing some of the best young boxing talent from across the city. Edgar also warns him that Marvin will be competing in the tournament too, making this a perfect chance to see how Richie measures up. At the Diamond Gym weigh-in, Edgar and Richie come face to face with Marvin and his coach. Marvin looks at Richie, smiles, and then starts laughing. "Oh my God," Marvin says. "You're Richie?" Richie looks confused. "Yeah, what's so funny?" Marvin pulls out his phone and shows Richie the viral video of him getting knocked out by the koala mascot. Then Marvin grins and says, "I'm the koala." The moment Richie hears those words, his confidence turns into anger. He realizes Marvin is the same person who embarrassed him at the carnival and helped turn him into a joke online. Before Richie can react, Edgar steps in and pulls him away. During the tournament, Richie and Marvin dominate their opponents. Fight after fight, both of them prove they belong in the ring. Eventually, they meet in the semifinals. When the bell rings, it is clear that Marvin has more experience. He is sharper, calmer, and more comfortable under pressure. But Richie is not the same guy who got knocked out in the carnival. He fights with heart, power, and pride for 4 rounds. Richie and Marvin go back and forth in a brutal battle. Richie lands hard shots, including his dangerous uppercut, but Marvin's experience helps him control just enough to win by decision. Richie is disappointed, but he still reaches out to congratulate Marvin. Marvin refuses the handshake and begins showboating, doing the same celebration he did at the carnival. After the fight, Marvin speaks to reporters and brings up the viral video. I told y'all, Marvin says. I'm still the beast. Richie tries to step towards him, but Edgar holds him back. It's okay, Edgar tells him. You win some, you lose some, but you never lose your respect for the sport. As Edgar and Richie are leaving the gym, Marvin's coach approaches. He tells Richie that he's an amazing talent and says he has not seen an uppercut like Richie's in years. If you had landed one more clean shot on Marvin, you might have won by knockout. Richie is still heated, but respectfully thanks the coach and walks away. On the car ride home, Richie stares out the window and says, I'm not losing to him again. Edgar keeps his eyes on the road and replies, I know you won't, and I'll make sure you're ready. Months later, Edgar tells Richie that all of his hard work has paid off. Richie has been invited to an Olympic development camp. Richie is shocked by the news. He thinks back to sitting in college classes, feeling lost, miserable, and unsure of what he wanted to do with his life. Now he is preparing to train for a chance at the Olympics. Edgar also tells him that Marvin will be there. Richie is not happy about that, but he tells Edgar he will not let Marvin ruin his opportunity. He knows how hard he has worked to get here. He refuses to let anyone take that away from him. At camp, Richie and Marvin cross paths often. Marvin continues to bully him, telling Richie that he would not even be there if it were not for the carnival and the viral knockout, but Richie ignores him. Marvin's words do not shake him anymore. During training, the Olympic coaches tell Richie that his technique is flawed and could be dangerous. They warn him that relying too much on his natural power may hurt him in the long run. But Richie believes in the style that got him this far, so he continues to do things his way. When the Olympic team is selected, the coaches choose Marvin over Richie. Richie does not make the main roster, but he is named as an alternate. The decision hurts, but Richie keeps training. Then, during the Olympic Games, one of the boxers gets hurt. Richie is called up to take his spot. With the world watching, Richie steps into the ring and proves that he belongs. By the end of the game, Richie wins the bronze medal. When Richie returns home, Edgar tells him how proud he is. He also lets Richie know that promoters have started showing interest in working with him. Richie once left school feeling like his life has no direction. Now, he is an Olympic medalist with a real future in boxing. After his performance in the Olympic Games, Richie is finally ready to sign his first professional boxing contract. Richie does not fully understand everything he is reading, but he knows one thing for sure: this contract could change his life forever. Hoping this is the opportunity he has been waiting for, Richie signs the deal. Not long after, Richie learns the viral video of him getting knocked out by the koala mascot will become part of the promoter's business strategy. They want to use the video to promote his career. Richie is not happy about it. Because of the contract he signed, he has no real choice in the matter. The promoter begins pushing him under the name Richie the Glitch. Richie hates the name, but he tries to ignore it and focus on boxing. Despite the embarrassment, he continues winning fights and builds his professional record. Then Edgar confronts Richie with even worse news. The promoter is also working with Marvin. Not only that, but Marvin is using the viral knockout to promote himself and make money. Richie realizes he cannot stop it because of the contract he signed. The promoter has been using Richie's humiliation to build Marvin's name the entire time. Eventually, the promoter sets up a fight between his two clients and makes it as Battle of the Beasts 2. Richie is irritated, but he has no choice but to take the match. The fight goes 6 hard rounds. Richie fights with everything he has, and many people watching believe he did enough to win. But when the decision is announced, Marvin wins again. To Richie, it feels like the promoter had already decided how the story was supposed to end. After the fight, Richie asks to be released from his contract. He decides he would rather walk away from the promoter than continue being used as a part of someone else's storyline. Richie then speaks publicly and tells the world that Edgar has always taught him, you win some, you lose some, but you never disrespect the sport. Richie returns to Edgar's gym full-time, still training, still helping out the corner store like he's done for years. Even after everything he has been through, the gym still feels like home. One day, Edgar confronts Richie about his fighting style. He tells Richie that his uppercut is powerful, but power alone will not carry him forever. Richie thinks back to the Olympic coaches, who once told him the same thing. His technique needs work. Edgar explains that times are changing. Fighters and coaches have studied Richie's style for years. They know his strength, his habits, and the punch he likes to rely on. If Richie wants to stay competitive, he needs to add more weapons to his game. Richie knows Edgar is right. He agrees to change, and together, they begin preparing for the upcoming regional tournament. Richie trains harder than ever, but this time he is not just focused on power. Edgar helps him sharpen his footwork, improve his defense, and add new combinations so opponents cannot predict what is coming. Richie also helps Edgar get certified, making sure his coach can stand by his side at every level of boxing. When the regional tournament begins, Richie looks like a different fighter. He is calmer, smarter, and more complete in the ring. Round after round, he dominates his opponents and fights his way to the finals. By the end of the tournament, Richie is crowned regional champion. During his post-fight interview, reporters tell Richie that Marvin has just won the world title. Marvin has already called him out, daring Richie to come face the beast if he can. Richie says nothing at first. He just looks over at Edgar, knowing exactly what this means. The road back to Marvin has officially begun. Richie and Edgar are now working harder than ever to prepare for Marvin. Richie knows he has lost to Marvin 3 times. The knockout at the carnival, decision in the tournament, and the setup fight that was controlled by their old promoter. This time, Richie refuses to be used. During weeks of intense training, Richie and Edgar are told that Richie cannot just walk into a fight with the world champion. First, he has to sign with a promoter and prove himself on the world circuit. By now, Richie understands how the business side of boxing works. To him, it feels like the greed of the sport is trying to squeeze as much money out of him as possible. Before giving him the big opportunity still, Richie knows he has to play the game if he wants a shot at Marvin. He agrees to sign with a local promoter, someone Edgar trusts and has sent other fighters to in the past. With a better team behind him, Richie finally feels his career is moving in the right direction. This time, he is not being promoted as a joke. He is being pushed as Richie the Redeemer. With Edgar in his corner and a strong promoter by his side, Richie tears through the competition. Fight after fight, he proves that he is no longer the same man Marvin embarrassed years ago. Eventually, Richie earns exactly what he has been chasing, a world title shot against Marvin. Richie's training for the biggest fight of his life begins immediately, but there is one major problem. Edgar's health is not in a good place. Edgar keeps it hidden from Richie because he does not want him to be distracted from his journey. But Richie can tell something is wrong. When Richie confronts him, Edgar admits that he has waited his whole life to see one of his students reach a world title match. He tells Richie that he is not going to let his health take this moment away from him, from either of them. Richie looks at Edgar and tells him that no one else will take his place by his side. "You changed my life," Richie says. "I owe you everything." At the weigh-in, Marvin smiles at Richie. He tosses a stuffed koala bear at him. Taped to it is a $20 bill, reminding Richie of the carnival. Richie looks down at the bear and then back at Marvin. This time, he does not get angry. He smiles. "If you think I'm still that lost boy from the carnival," Richie says, "you're in for a rude awakening. I'm an Olympic medalist. I'm a regional champion. And I'm the man who is going to redeem boxing by slaying the beast." Richie and Marvin stare each other down as the roar of the crowd becomes deafening. On fight night, Richie is ready. For the first 10 rounds, both men give everything they have. Marvin lands heavy shots. Richie fires back. Every round feels like war, and neither fighter is willing to break. By the 12th round, Richie can see Marvin is starting to fade. His punches are slower. His breathing is heavier. The beast is running out of gas. Richie waits for the perfect moment. He fakes the uppercut, making Marvin react as Marvin slips to avoid it. Richie catches him with a hook from his blind side. Marvin hits the canvas. This time, he does not get back up. Richie has done it. He is the new world champion. As Richie celebrates in the ring, Marvin slowly walks over and extends his hand. Richie looks at Edgar, then back at Marvin. After everything they have been through, Richie accepts the handshake. Marvin pulls him close and says, "You deserve it, champ." Richie is surprised. He does not know what to say. Then he looks at Marvin and says, "Thank you for pushing me all these years." Later that night, Richie sits alone in his hotel room with the title resting on the bed. He opens his phone and watches the old video from the carnival. The video that once made him feel like the biggest joke in the world. This time, Richie smiles with tears in his eyes. He is no longer the lost young man who got knocked out for everyone to laugh at. He is no longer the joke. Richie is the champion. 2 years later, after many title defenses, serious injuries, and Edgar passing, Richie decides it is finally time to hang up the gloves. He announces his retirement at the new gym he created in Edgar's honor, making sure his coach's legacy will live on. In retirement, Richie spends his time coaching young boxers the same way Edgar once trained him. He teaches them discipline, patience, and the lesson Edgar repeated throughout his career. You win some, you lose some, but you always respect the sport. One day, Richie and his family attend a charity carnival event. While walking through the fair, Richie sees Marvin. The two men look at each other, smile, and greet each other with a quiet nod. There is no trash talk anymore, no anger, just respect. Before leaving, Richie notices the same kind of $20 boxing booth that started everything for him years ago. A crowd is gathering around it, going crazy. Curious, Richie walks over and sees an 18-year-old girl standing in front of the booth. The mascot is on the ground. She knocked him out with one punch. The mascot jumps up, embarrassed, yelling that he was not ready. Angry, humiliated, he charges towards the girl. She raises her hands ready to defend herself. Before anything can happen, Richie steps between them. He stares at the mascot, and the mascot immediately recognizes who he is. Without saying another word, the mascot backs down and walks away. The girl, still confused and frustrated, yells after him. She never received her $100 prize. Richie smiles. He pulls out $120 and hands it to her. Then he gives her a card with the address to the gym. "You've got something special," Richie tells her. "Trust me."